Sara, welcome. In your view, where are we seeing digital approaches having the most impact in healthcare delivery?
So I work with a provider, and I think there's certainly, we actually have 5 A's of AI. We talk about assisting, augmenting, automating, accelerating, and amplifying. And I think those all apply in our scenarios. We've seen the most amount of, I would say, impact on the clinician experience and on the patient experience. And there's, of course, a lot of overlap between the two, and they intersect quite a lot. A couple of examples. We are seeing a tremendous amount of potential as it relates to digital to drive a better consumer experience around what our Providence promise is, which is know me, care for me, ease my way. So number one, know who your users are. It's really critical to know who your users are. And we've done a pretty poor job of that in healthcare historically. It's very episodic. It's very like you got sick, you came in, that's all we know about you. But now digital has the potential, in particular through new identity approaches that are much more cohesive across a full digital ecosystem, not just limited to one specific organization. We can actually know people across all the things that matter to them and then deliver personalized experiences. So I think that is one really tremendous area that we're going to see a lot of movement on in the next couple of years. The other big areas are on clinician experience. So I think these are still kind of low-hanging fruit, a lot of basic blocking and tackling as it relates to things like ambient support for documentation and charting for clinicians, in-basket management. If you're not familiar with the concept of the in-basket, it's basically a physician's email inbox. It's their work queue that's in Epic, and they have to touch thousands and thousands of messages, which is grinding away at physicians and APPs and making their lives really difficult. So actually understanding the context of messages, both in the clinical context, sort of more generally as to what an appropriate action would be, but also that specific patient, and then supporting them in driving a specific action. So similar to the consumer personalization side, but much more focused on physicians and APPs. And I think all of those things, you'll notice similar themes, right? Know what the context is, deliver insights, and then be able to take action. And those common themes are going to become more and more widespread with the improvements in technology. Last thing I'll say is a bit of a caution, and thing that I worry about is that over the last 8 years or so, we've seen a massive proliferation of solutions. And I know we'll talk a little bit about the challenges, but that we can't repeat that same pattern because providers are already overwhelmed. It's just, we should learn from our mistakes.
What do you see as the main stumbling blocks to realizing those potentials for both patients and clinicians?
The difficulty in separating out signal from noise, especially with Gen AI solutions, or LLM, large language model powered solutions, is very real. And the reason for that proliferation of solutions and the difficulty of differentiating signal from noise is because it's actually gotten really easy to build applications. It's like, I could do it and I'm not a technologist, right? There are so many tools out there for building applications, but then how do they integrate into the workflow? How do they integrate into the underlying technical infrastructure? How do you monitor them on an ongoing basis to make sure they're doing the thing that you want them to do and that you think that they're doing? Are they actually working? And by the way, do they share the data? Do you have the visibility to even be able to do monitoring in the first place? So those are some of the big challenges that we're seeing. Just massive proliferation. And so it's just a massive sea change in how easy it is to build something, but then what's the value? What are you getting for it?
Finally, what are some of the trends, the innovations that you're most excited about for the year ahead?
I'm very excited about a few things. One, and it sounds like probably the least exciting thing, but I love infrastructure and I think it has so much potential to transform healthcare, is everything that's being done in monitoring. What do you need to do to test and validate a model from an AI context before you ever deploy it? And at what point? Is it a snapshot in time? the model, the second you release that model out into the wild, it starts to change. And so how we think about monitoring from a pre-deployment perspective and then from a post-deployment perspective, there's things called model drift. You need to ensure, all of these models, the outcomes, the outputs are what we call probabilistic, not deterministic. So you don't get a single output for the input that is always going to be the same. There's virtually an infinite number of possibilities within a range. And so how you do that work is, I think, very interesting. It's a very interesting technical problem. How you do governance around it from a data, training set perspective, a provenance perspective. I think all of that is extremely exciting, even though it's the sort of nerdy technical stuff. But what it really, the output of that is, if we don't do that stuff, we're not going to responsibly deploy AI. And we will be held to account with our patients, with our clinicians, in the court of public opinion, in even at the state and federal regulatory level, even with some themes around deregulation at the federal level. So I think we have to do that. And I'm very excited about it. And then ultimately, I do think that this is a major inflection point as it relates to being able to achieve the quad aim in healthcare. Bringing down costs has been really hard, right? It's because complexity has increased so much. And we can actually take complexity out and reimagine the way that healthcare is administered in addition to the way it's delivered. We often talk about, these sort of things that influence clinical delivery, but I think that the other stuff actually is really powerful too. Just how you administer a system that is so complex and make it really easy. And I think that AI might allow us to see new things as well. New patterns, new ways of delivering without, one of the challenges of technology has always been, well, you need standardization first. I think that we can see new ways of delivering care in a hospital with, and just administration of care as well, with Gen AI.
Sara, can you give me an example of how this benefits patient outcome?
Yes, absolutely. So think about you as a user. You're different from me as a user. We live in different parts of the world. We have different families. We have different clinical needs and probably different social situations as well. Like you might live in an area with public transportation. I might not. And so when I talked about knowing the user, for instance, think about if you logged into your experience, it was tailored to you. Your clinical provider, your physician is at the top. The actions that you specifically need to take. Let's say you need to go in and get immunized and I need to go and do a mammogram. We're different people. And that one thing that you have to do is tailored specifically to you and delivered specifically to you versus what I need to do is tailored specific to me and delivered specifically to me. And in the way that we want. So you might want to access via mobile, I might want to access via web, or I want someone to text it to me. And so knowing those individual things drives better outcomes. And what we know today is that when we have personalized insights that are delivered to our patients, that it's just the next thing you have to do. It's not the long list, the 25 things you have to do. It's just the one thing that we drive what's in very sort of plain terms is called better conversion. We know that folks will engage, and when they engage, their outcomes are better. So that is a really plain example of people getting for instance, the preventive care that they need just because it was made easy for them to understand and presented to them where they are.
Sara, thank you so much.
Thank you.